Welcome to the most compelling talk show on TV, The Desk on Global Television, where we look at issues from different sides of a certain story and give you very balanced analysis of all the big points making the rounds across the globe and in Nigeria. My name is Anthony Momodi. Welcome to today's edition. It's Happy Boxing Day. I intend to make your day truly amazing, giving you boxes of very interesting talking points that's going to get you well informed and also give you insight as regards things playing out on the global and national and subnational levels. Today is no different as we look at top issues making the rounds across. We'll be starting from the Middle East, where we're still looking at issues playing out in Syria, where Syria's new rebel-led authorities say supporters of the ousted President Bashar al-Assad have killed 14 Interior Ministry troops in an ambush in the west of the country. They say 10 other troops were wounded in the fighting on Tuesday near the Mediterranean port of Tartus, a stronghold of Assad's minority Alawite Muslim sect. So we'll be looking at the implications of this continuous fight. Even when Assad is ousted, does it necessarily mean the end of his reign, as Damascus is in all kind of different troubles, talking about the capital of Syria. All right, from there we'll be moving on to some other issues making the round across the globe as we look at issues in South Korea, where South Korea's opposition said Thursday it filed an impeachment motion against acting President Han Duck-soo in an escalating row over the composition of the Constitutional Court, which will decide whether to remove his predecessor from office or not. So this is South Korea almost looking like the African continent, where power tussle seems endless. So we'll be looking at that, the implication of what's happening in South Korea, how it changes the dynamics of global politics. From there, we'll be looking at other issues still from the global scene. We'll be bringing you down to Africa, where it's all about the issue playing out in Mozambique, where there's been election results impasse. Meanwhile, it's just to let you know that as regards 1,500 prisoners have escaped from a prison in Mozambique, taking advantage of the ongoing political unrest triggered by the disputed election result. Police say 33 people were killed and 15 injured in clashes with guards and police chiefs. Talking about Bernardino Rafael told the press. About 150 more fugitives have since been recaptured. Very sad commentary talking about Mozambique. There used to be a very calm country, and a lot of issues are playing out there. So we'll be looking at this, and also the fact that Mozambique main opposition leader in the person of Venancio Mondlane has declared that he will install himself as president on January 15 after rejecting his defeat in the presidential elections. His announcement came as his supporters staged violent protests across the country to demand an end to the 49-year rule of the Frelimo party. The capital, Maputo, was like a ghost town on Christmas Eve, with almost all businesses shut and people staying at home to avoid being caught up in the worst unrest in history since independence in 1975. Very sad story there coming out from Mozambique. From there, we'll be taking you to Niger Republic, where Niger has continued to accuse France and Nigeria of unholy relationship. Niger Republic's head of state, General Abdurrahmani Tiani, has alleged that France is providing financial support to Nigerian authorities to establish a military base in Borno State. Tiani said the plan is purportedly to destabilize Niger and its neighboring countries. Zagazula Makama, a Lake Chad Basin counterterrorism and insurgency expert, made this known in a post on his X handle on Wednesday. Makama said the Niger's junta leader made the claim during a recent address. So how controversial this accusation. Like they say, when it comes to legal terms, who accuses has the burden of proof. So Niger has to prove to the rest of the world that indeed Nigeria is being funded by France. to destabilize Niger Republic and other countries. These and other issues is what we'll be looking at today's edition of the program at the desk, and we'll be looking at the sad occurrence in Sokoto State, where the Nigerian Air Force strike intended to neutralize the Lakuruwa terrorists mad Christmas celebrations in Sokoto State on Wednesday, as it mistakenly hit two communities in Silame, a local government area of the state, killing several residents. These and other stories is what we'll look at on today's edition. We'll go for a quick break. When we return from the break, I'll be introducing my guest who is seated and ready to dish out all the big analysis. And I will also be joined via Zoom by a labor activist in the person of Barrister Chukuma Inze, who is joining us via Zoom. After this break, we hit the discuss button. Stay with us. Right, welcome back from the break. It's now time for us to hit that discuss button as we get into gear and give you very balanced analysis. I want to introduce my guest who is in the studio. He is the president of the Isoko Development Union, the FCT chapter. He's no other person but Simon Enejedu. He is in the studio. Compliments of the season.
Merry Christmas to all your viewers and yourself too. We wish you all best tidings at this period of the year.
Thank you very much. All right, so let's kickstart our discuss quickly from the very interesting issues playing out in Syria, where it's said that the body that's talking about the sets now, the group that is taking charge of the country right now, that's ousted Assad from power, lost 14 members of the internal troops because of the ambush by those who are loyal to the ousted president. Do you think, looking at what's playing out in Syria, do you think the Syria is far from being settled in terms of the group that is in charge right now?
Well, I think anybody that thinks at this stage that all is settled and the new regime has taken off, I think that person must be making a terrible mistake. This Assad regime, starting from his father to his son, Bashir, has been in existence for the past 53 years. And of course, over those years, they built their own loyalists. In fact, it was even surprising that there was not much fighting before the rebels were able to succeed in taking over the place. So there are still bandits, a couple of loyalists all over the country that are still loyal to the Assad regime. And so those things will always appear. Now, what I expect the new regime to do is to try and see how you can bring in all the fighting forces together like they proposed into the National Army. But I also am aware that the Syrian Democratic Forces in the north, that is a Kurdish group, they said they will not join the National Army yet. I think it is time that...
is it because they're having reservations in terms of the constitution of the National Army?
Of course, I think at this stage, once they've been able to establish an army, the next thing they should do is to have a constitutional assembly where people can sit together and draft a constitution for that country and conduct an election so that everything will move well. But at this stage, of course, they should expect a lot of...
Do they need foreign assistance in order to get rid of the remains and the loyalists of Assad? How important is that?
Well, foreign assistance in terms of when you see a situation in which Russia came in, Iran came in, and no, I don't think that's what they need at this stage. What they need at this stage is unifying their own forces to have one national army. Foreign assistance would not at this stage help them. It would further divide them. I think that's just the truth. It will further divide them from what they were.
Okay, let's move to the next talking point. Let's go to South Korea, where it looks like things are getting a little bit nasty. We're looking at South Korea opposition by Thursday saying they are filing for impeachment of the recently acting president. Do you think this is all about the former president, or who has been suspended temporarily, still having a say or still having influence on what's playing out? Because this is about trying to ensure that the constitution of the judiciary that will decide whether the impeachment goes through or not is what is causing this rift.
Well, the acting president knows what is at stake, because the former president, per se, although he's still a president,
but is impeached technically.
Yeah,
just
he hasn't. They've not
finally ratified it. Yes.
Now, if the current constitutional court, as it is, sits, and they are able to have a tie, then the man comes back as a president. And I think he's playing the loyalty card to his former boss. And so he doesn't want to really rush into these things. And so I'm sure there are the party.
But the opposition is filing for this just on Thursday now. Is it like they were caught napping? They didn't expect that this acting president was going to still be loyal to the ousted?
Well, in politics, you can expect anything. I'm sure at the time that they made that vote of impeachment on the president, I'm sure that even the ruling party was in support, but positions can change overnight. Now, I think what they are trying to do is damage control and say, how can we patch this man to come back? So I think they're really very, very careful, because it could lead the country into more further divide.
All right, very interesting. We will keep our fingers crossed and our eyes glued to South Korea to see how these developments would turn out in the coming days, especially as we enter 2025. Let's come back to the African continent, where about 1,500 prisoners have escaped their prison cells in Mozambique. How bad is this? Because we're talking about 1,500 criminals getting into the country that is already in disarray right now due to the disputed election results. How bad is this that African countries cannot seem to have smooth transition?
Well, I give it to the Mozambican government. At least they've been able to succeed. Within a few days, they arrested 150, which is a feat. And I recall when it happened in Nigeria.
In Nigeria, okay.
How many have we been able to recapture? I don't have the figures, but I don't think there are much more than that 150 that has been recaptured so far.
Out of 1,500.
Yes, well, it is something,
Okay.
you know. So the thing is, whenever there is a crisis in a country, a lot of things happen. And Mozambique is no different from any other African country. A lot of things.
But they used to be very peaceful.
Well, the word peaceful, to the outsider, they may appear to be peaceful, but when you grow up in a country where one party has
For 49
always
years, yes.
has always controlled power, you have a lot of dissent here and there, but it's just that people might not be able to
To
come
speak
out.
up, yeah.
People might not be able to come out openly to say, okay, we are done with this. And the only way is election. And they conducted the election, and of course, towing the line of all other African leaders, the ruling party doesn't want to concede. Even though there seems to be, and even the opposition too, they don't seem to want to concede to what the Constitutional Court is saying. Because if you look at the result, initially they said the ruling party won 71%, and the opposition got only 20%.
Good.
The gap is
Too wide.
and even after the Constitutional Court has started, they said, okay, the ruling party got 64% and the opposition got 24%. You know, the gap is still very, very far. So was it that the rigging was so massive that we have such a big gap? And I think if such a big gap exists, opposition need to really call themselves to order, because at the end of the day, nothing good comes out of violence. They can still come together. Most likely, they can start discussing about a government of national unity to bring people together. Then they can have one.
But the Frelimo party, which has been in power since 1975 independence, and their candidate, Dana Chapo, doesn't seem to want that route. And the opposition is saying by January he's going to install himself as president. Are we likely to see further violence or probably arrest of the opposition candidate?
Well, if you are an opposition leader, and
because that was what Ebola also told in that line, yeah.
Exactly, that's what happened in Nigeria. You see, you also have to consider the life of your followership. It's not just about you. You can't win an election and rule over trees and grasses. It's the people you will still rule. So, if the opposition, I expect the opposition to also consider the danger that his followership are going through. A lot of people have died over this issue, which is unnecessary. Our election processes have just not matured at all. And even the Frelimo party, they themselves has to be careful how they handle issues of mass protest. Was it that the rigging was so much, or was it that the opposition really failed this election? Me and you cannot really tell from this side. It's only those who are there that can really say, oh, at least from what we can see of the election, this is what it was.
But if the Mozambicans are already tired because the Frelimo party has been ruling since 1970, that's 49 years in power.
If you are tired and you didn't vote, how will you change power? You are tired, you did nothing about it. You can't change power that way, you know.
But the people are saying they voted and the vote didn't count, so that's why they're pouring out to the streets.
They should stand by their vote. They should stand by their vote, and violence will not solve it. So I think they need to call themselves to order, because they have a country to consider. They have the population to consider. Killing of innocent citizens is not advisable. Look at the U.S. election. I mean, their population is by far more than most of us. But was there any report of anybody dying? No. So we should be able to we should be magnanimous winners as well as
losers.
So
All right, just to let you know that Filipe Nyusi is due to step down at the end of his 2 term, and it is unclear whether Mondlane intends to take office, as he's currently in self-imposed exile in an unknown country. He has frequently rallied his supporters via speeches on Facebook, and so Chapo has not yet commented on his declaration. So it's going to be very interesting. One man stepping down after 2 terms, then the 2 rivals, the Frelimo party candidate and the opposition party candidate, Mondlane. We'll see between both men if they'll be able to reach a truce so that the peace can return to the eastern country, talking about Mozambique. All right, let's come back to Nigeria quickly, as we've got very disturbing accusation coming from Niger Republic. We're having Abdurrahmani Tiani, the military ruler of Niger, insistent for almost 2 weeks now, insisting that Nigeria is being lobbied by France to establish a base in Borno in order to destabilize, Niger Republic. These accusations are quite weighty. Shouldn't the Nigerian government take it more serious rather than just allow the news to keep festering without a very strong worded statement from the Nigerian government?
Well, I'm not in government, but I think Nigerians stand to gain nothing from a destabilized neighbor, especially Niger Republic. The whole of our northern flank is flanked by Niger Republic. So if there is problem in Niger Republic, we are also in problem. And I think the relationship between Nigeria and France so far is purely business. We know our president just left France of recent, and it was a purely business trip. So I think these allegations are very, very wild. And even if Nigeria wants a support from foreigners, I don't think France is the best place to look at. Number one, we've not been best of friends from beginning. It's just of recent that,
But doesn't, is that why it looks a little bit shady? That once France was kicked out of Niger, suddenly Nigeria is romancing with France so closely that we had a bilateral relationship in terms of the presidential visits. We had our national female team also play a friendly match almost at the same period. All these 3 different events occurring, trying to cement the tie between Nigeria and France. Is that not enough to have raised those rumors?
That definitely is not enough. It's definitely not enough, because, who is France that Nigeria will run to? France is not more than...
But they are definitely one of the superpowers.
Well, they are, but they are not. If you are really considering real superpower in global affairs, I don't think France will be one of the people you want to measure. So, and if Niger can push them out the way they push them out, Burkina Faso push them out the way they push them out, Mali push them out the way they push them out, what would giving them a base in Nigeria do? It doesn't make any sense at all. I think it is just mere fabrication, and they just want to get at Nigeria and give excuse for the populace to rise up against Nigerians. And those things happens here and there. Once the government flies a particular kite, or the people will take it, and then the next thing that happens, you see the general public rise up against Nigeria and start, killing people unnecessarily and so on. So I think the government need to come out with a very strongly worded communique, letting them know that we have no hand in what is happening in Niger Republic, because we stand to gain nothing from a destabilized Niger Republic.
Well said. Let's move on to the next talking point. Nigerian Air Force airstrike intended to neutralize the Lakurua terrorists Mad Christmas in 2 communities in Sokoto State. This is not the first time. We remember there was 2 or 3 years ago, about 3-4 years ago, where Iran, the same Nigerian Air Force, mistakenly, killed persons in one community in Kaduna. This happening again, do you think this is calling to question the professionalism of Air Force, and also the equipment or the fighter jets they're using? We thought these fighter jets are supposed to be precise.
Well,
and intelligence reporting they're also getting.
I read a report yesterday on this particular bombing, and from all indication, that those two villages that were bombed, the natives are no longer living there, because when these Lakurawa people came, in fact, they were facing pressure elsewhere, and so they used that place as their base. So because of kidnapping, frequent kidnapping and insecurity, the native all left, leaving only the Lukarawa people here.
Yeah.
So that the Nigerian Air Force is able to locate them and did what they did, I'm sure they have their own reconnaissance, they have their own intelligence. And from what I read, they were good intelligence that anybody who is there in that village is either a member of the Lukarawa set or a sympathizer. So I don't think until the Air Force is able to do their own investigation and they come out to say openly, yes.
But they have confirmed that there was a mistake in the killing of those members of this community.
Well, then they need to relook at their own intelligence too, because they don't just bomb villages without really strong evidence that what they are looking for is what they have there. We've seen that in a couple of months and weeks ago, the Tuji Bello group, they really dealt with them. A lot of them were killed, and that kind of a thing. So they have good intelligence, that I can assure you. But of course, you can't rule
margin of error. Some margin of error. Right.
Error. So error can occur anywhere. But the important thing is that, we sympathize with if people were mistakenly killed, we sympathize with them. But then also people in those localities, they should also know that if the Nigerian Air Force don't do what they are doing now, another case of Boko Haram will soon.
Okay. Well said. Let's move on to the next talking point. We've got Betty Akeredolu, a widow of the late former governor of Ondo State, Rotimi Akeredolu, has rejected the planned memorial lecture in his honor organized by the state government. The lecture, scheduled for Friday in Akure, is part of a series of activities to commemorate the first anniversary of Akeredolu's death on December 27, 2023. The state government had announced that a renowned lawyer, Femi Falana, would deliver the lecture with Bashirum Sayinde serving as the chairman of the Akeredolu Leadership Lecture Series. However, Betty Akeredolu took to X account on Wednesday to distance herself and her family from the event. She accused the state government of not involving the Akeredolu family in planning and claimed they were not invited to the occasion. She further criticized the memorial event, calling it an attempt to exploit Akeredolu's legacy for financial gains. But in response, the chief press secretary of the governor, Aiyedatiwa Ebenezer Adeniyon, clarified that there was no conflict between the state government and the Akeredolu family. Do you think the widow is just probably still haven't gotten over the fact that the death of her late husband, or still has some beef as to how Lucky Aiyedatiwa rose to power, even or wanted to become the governor even before Akeredolu truly or completely passed on, because there seemed to be some rift before he actually was pronounced dead.
If you recall very well, even during the burial, these things started coming up. Yeah, and there were a lot of differences between the wife in particular. I want to assume that the wife is speaking for the family and the Akeredolu, and the government of Ondo State. So I think organizing a lecture, it is good you carry them along, but it is not absolutely a necessity
to inform them.
Yeah, you can inform them, but it is not absolute. It's not an absolute necessity. Yeah, if you think the man has done something and you want to immortalize him, you want to institute a memorial lecture, you can do that. invite them if they are there, good and fine. If they are not there, it doesn't still.
He's for the state and not for one. Yeah.
It's not for the family.
Yeah.
It's not a family
affair.
Yeah. So I don't really see any point in that outburst.
Do you think she has yet to forgive Lucky for that period when the husband was refusing to cede power to him when he was away on the medical treatment?
Well, there are a lot of personal interests in this things.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sure if at that stage the wife was allowed, the widow was allowed to play a more active role in running of the state, as well as selecting a succession, I'm sure most of all these things would have come up. But she has to wake up to the reality. The man is gone and gone. State affairs has to continue. Somebody else is there now. The man, he has just won election. At the end of his tenure, another person will be there. So if she's strong enough and she wants to contest, nothing stop her from contesting against the governor. It's all welcome. That's the beauty of democracy. So let her join the queue.
Right, well said. And so we'll leave that at that. Let's just quickly move on to another talking point as we try to run against them. Let's do this before we go for a quick break. Bishop Kukah has blamed, that's talking about the Catholic Bishop of Sokoto Diocese, Matthew Kukah, says the stampede we've gotten all this while, he put it squarely on the doorstep of the government, that if the government did not fail, there would be no need for Nigerians to have to queue for food and all this. Is he being fair, or is he shifting the blame?
My brother, from your own personal experience today, you will know that things are not easy. Right now, if you get 10 calls, I'm sure 8 of those anything to eat, please come and help us. So I would have traveled for the festivity, but I look at the cost of airfare to go to Delta State right now, one way. Airpeace is charging 315,000 naira. And then I would need to transport myself from my house to the airport, about 30,000. Then when I got to the airport, I have to take an airport taxi from there to my place. Another possibly 50,000. So if I count it, going alone will cost me nothing less than
500,000.
400 to 500,000. Coming is going to be the same thing. Now the alternative that the government provided, there is a free train service to worry. The crowd, my brother. So to avoid stories that touch the heart, I decided to stay in my Abuja quietly.
All right.
So there is hunger in the land. Everybody's angry, everybody's agitated. I think government should do something to really do something. The man stated it as it is, and I fully support what he says. All
right, we'll go for a quick break. Once we return from the break, we'll be looking at one key issue that concerns the Niger Delta. We will be looking at the issue of corporate social responsibility, how to entrench it in communities, especially for international companies and organizations as a whole, because recently even the federal government is looking at establishing departments and units in the federal ministries to ensure that the corporate social responsibility is adhered to for the good of Nigerians. That will be after this break. Stay with us. All right, welcome back from that quick break. You're watching The Desk, and we've been looking at issues that are making the rounds across board. I've got Simon Inde Jedu, who is the president of the Isoko Development Union FCT chapter, and he is my guest on today's edition, helping us do analysis from the global scene. South Korea, Syria, we've been there, we've been to Mozambique, and we've been to, we're in Nigeria now currently. We've talked about the Niger, accusing Nigeria of all sorts of malice. And it's now time for us to look at entrenching social corporate responsibility. Just last week, the federal government said it was going to establish departments in the federal ministries to ensure that this phenomenon is achieved for the efficiency and the good of Nigerians. Let's look at this talking point, which the federal government has alluded to, that come 2025, it's something they're going to establish. How important is it, especially for the Niger Delta communities, the oil producing communities like yours, where IOCs have deliberately or in connivance with some government agency decided to turn their oil away, not doing the social corporate responsibility that they're mandated to carry out, especially talking about power, for instance.
Okay, thank you for this beautiful topic. I think it's long overdue. Social corporate responsibility in the Niger Delta is zero. And I'm going to talk based on my experience as a President General of an oil producing community in that region. Between the period 2012 to 2016, I was leading a community. My community was also part of the oil producing.
What's the name of the community? We'd like to know.
It's called Owelogbo.
Owelogbo
In Isoko North government area. We're not a major oil producing community, but we still have our own share.
Fair share, yeah.
So, you see, when you talk about corporate social responsibility, you want to feel the impact of people who are doing business in your community.
Okay.
You want to see that what concerns you also concerns them. But the way it is being run is far from that. Now, take for example, prior to now, we used to have the MPDC who took over from Shell Petroleum.
Okay.
Yeah. So they used to have some level of social responsibility to the oil community, even though it was small. I'll give you an example. For example, in the area of education, we have what they call the scholarship.
Okay.
There is scholarship for, it's still running up to now.
Okay.
There's scholarship for secondary school and for tertiary institution, and then for postgraduate studies.
Okay.
Now, for the scholarship for secondary school, it's just 50,000 naira a year. And a community like mine, we are usually given five slots. So to select those 5 people is a lot of fight. It can even bring division within the community as one. Then for secondary school, I think it's just 3, and they get 100,000 a year. Then for postgraduate programs,
yeah.
In fact, we are not consulted at all. We don't. If you have to be very watchful on the newspaper to know that this program is going on, and there is nothing like any concession for the oil producing communities.
Yeah.
So everybody has equal access. You see, the thing is that they are fighting for this corporate social responsibility because their means of livelihood is impacted. Before you can plant your cassava and make a good harvest, now you can't make any good harvest. Before you have a swamp, and this is where we do fishing.
Okay.
Now you can't do any fishing. Nothing exists in those places anymore. So the people's means of livelihood is seriously impacted, and that equally affects their ability to be able to train their children. Now, so if what they are giving to us was a patry thing, we were still managing it.
Obviously patry.
Yes, we were still managing it. Now, if you look at the area of employment, that is where we have a major issue. Take, for example, the slots that are given to communities are either the unskilled worker or semi-skilled workers. And here we are talking about security men, cleaners, and those kind of jobs.
Not jobs that would actually bring true development.
There is none at all. So there is no middle level manpower, not to talk of management level manpower. And these are the things that will actually bring in development to those communities. They don't exist. So I think a situation in which we can have a deliberate action and put a certain a quota to these things, I think that will help a lot. For example, if you because the operators of those joint ventures, Ajib and others, they own 40% of the shares of the company. The federal government also owns 60%.
Yeah.
Now, at the end of the day, they will tell you we are paying our taxes. So those things you are talking about, government ought to do those things. What we are saying is that is not enough. You live within us, and we should feel the impact of your being a member of our community. Now, if you're operating in a company and all your managers, they are from elsewhere, how do you expect our people to relate very well with you? They can't. So these are some of the things that bring in some of this agitation.
Unrest in the Niger Delta.
All over the whole place. Then, okay, let's talk about, today we have the Petroleum Industry Act, the PIA, which seeks to take over from the global MOU that we were operating before. Now, I'll give you an example with my community. My community is not a major oil-producing community, host community. Now, the Act has given us 3% of the profit from those companies. 3% is just too paltry. And out of that 3%, they subdivide it into host community. They have the lion's share. You have the pipeline communities, and then you have those ones that are on access road.
Access road, yeah.
So those of us in access road and pipeline is so small. It's just a little fraction. For example, my community is entitled to 4 million per annum. Now, if you take the current
economic situation, inflation,
Nigeria, what would 4 million do in a community? So they say, okay, let's consolidate it into 5 years. Even if you consolidate it into 5 years, 4 million times 5 years, what will that give you? 20 million. What project can you really do? You've not even
and considering the environment.
The contractor will take his own profit from that 20 million. And the environment too. So all these things, they're not good. Okay,
let's look at now that the federal government is saying it's going to instill departments that is going to ensure that this corporate responsibility action is complied by companies. Do you think this is going to be an opportunity for host communities like yours and other communities across the 6 geopolitical zone to make input or make demands, very strong demands that will be beneficial to them?
Yeah, I think it would be a very good opportunity, but it will only make more impact if some of these things are well spelled out. For example, take for employment, for example. Come out and say, okay, if we are employing, let's give, for management staff, we give the host community 5%. Middle management, we give the host community 30%. Low income earners, cleaners and others unskilled workers, we give you 70%. If those things are established, then there will be less friction. All we'll be working on is, have you met this? Can you show us proof? Have you met this? Show us proof. And we'll be able to say, okay, yeah.
Okay, on the final note as we wrap up, what are the key things you think these communities can do to ensure that, because one of the accusations before now is the fact that these IOCs usually give kickbacks to some government agencies or government officials, so it makes it easier for them to, escape without, carrying out their corporate social responsibility, and they're not being, fined or sanctioned for it because they've already given kickbacks. How do you think we can ensure that doesn't, raise its ugly head again?
So I would say it's not just even those people you are mentioning, even the traditional rulers. They all have their hand in these things. The traditional, before you can explore oil in any community, there are things, the demand the traditional ruler will make from you, and you must have to comply with those things before they will allow you in. So I think in those communities, we have community development union, where they elect on a free will basis those who lead them. If we can begin to deal with those community development union more than the government institutions, traditional rulers, and all those other whose only interest is what they can grab from this thing, I think we'll achieve better results. Let's begin to recognize this community development union, deal with the President General. If he doesn't fulfill the wish of his people, of course, when election comes, they will remove him.
Okay,
it's more democratic.
Okay, finally, in terms of lawsuits, do you think having a clause where they can be fined or made to pay exact amount of money in return, commensurate to whatever development is needed by the community, could be a very good clause as a way to force these IOCs to get the job done?
That would be excellent. It would be excellent. For example, if your pipeline breaks and you pollute the area, and you're not agreeing to come and clean up and do the necessary thing, there should be a penalty for that. You should be able to go to the court and seek redress. So those things are very, very important. Government should work on them.
All right, that's how much time is going to allow us to take one. I want to say a big thank you to Simon Enejedu, who is the president of the Isoko Development Union, the FCT chapter, joining me in the live studios, helping us to look at all the issues, and especially this last issue that concerns his people, as we hope that people of the Niger Delta will get what is due to them. And we hope the IOCs and the government will do the needful to ensure that these communities that produce these very natural resources that helps Nigeria's economy get the very best of what they produce. All right, my name is Anthony Momodu, saying thank you for joining me on today's edition of The Desk. We hope the box of gifts we have given to you today as on the desk was good enough to make your day truly amazing. Let's do this again tomorrow, when we'll be bringing fresh talking points for us to look at on The Desk. Good evening.